Good evening. Good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate. The fifth and the final test between India and England has been cancelled due to fear of COVID in the Indian camp after a physiotherapist tested positive yesterday, much to the disappointment of Test cricket fans who've been very closely watching this entire series. The last one isn't going to take place right now. In the early hours of this news coming in fact, since last evening, there's been much confusion about what is going to happen. Will there be the match? Will it not be there? Will it be cancelled? Will it be rescheduled? When will it be postponed to? Will we forfeit the match? And what does that really mean for the entire series? And I'm sure a lot of you have been part of those conversations. Now, according to sources, senior players cited health concerns to not play this test match. The BCCI and the England Cricket Board are in talks over rescheduling of the test match. So all is not lost yet. While the BCCI has offered ECB the rescheduling of the test, there is no confirmation from the England side right now. So as far as the BCCI is concerned, they have said that we've jointly called off the fifth test. We've held several rounds of discussion to find a way to play this test, but the outbreak of COVID on the Indian contingent side has forced us to take this decision. The BCCI has offered England a rescheduling of the cancelled test, and they're now working towards finding that window. A very challenging task by itself, highlighting also that the safety of the players is paramount. There's a lot of speculation, like I said, about what's going to happen. Adding to this speculation and confusion was ECB's first statement. So ECB initially came out and made the announcement about the COVID fears and increasing COVID cases within the Indian camp, and saying India are unable to field a team and will instead forfeit the match. But shortly after that, there was a fresh statement, another version, which just said India are regrettably unable to field a team, and it did not mention any forfeiting. So that's where the confusion lied until Rajiv Shukla came out and said it's just cancelled, we haven't forfeited. Why does it make a difference? We are not giving in those points right now. That's what this is all about as well. Now, there are lots of questions that we have in mind, lots of unanswered questions about what happens next. Will the test match be rescheduled to a later date, 6 months from now? Where will we find the window to really play this match? Or will India effectively have to forfeit it? Because England right now hasn't responded to this plan of ours. Why not postpone the test for a few days to begin with? And if you remember, India recently played Sri Lanka, where there were COVID fears and COVID cases emerging in the Sri Lankan camp. And so the date of the match kept getting pushed by 1 day each. And I think at least two or three times they actually moved those dates. So if that could have been done then, why didn't we do so now? Why didn't we wait for another couple of days to see how the situation progresses and if we can actually hold this test match right away and finish off the entire series? Was there an IPL factor somewhere around here playing a part in decision making? There isn't much space between this series ending and then players flying off to the Middle East to play the rest of the IPL tournament that couldn't be finished earlier in the summer. So, was that a factor? And because of which, did they actually decide to not go ahead with it? Many people are asking that question. I guess we'll never know. The other part is, will the test be rescheduled as a one-off match or a continuation of this series? Let's talk about that and say good evening to Indranil Basu, senior journalist joining me right now, Amay Khurasia, former Indian cricketer, Alan Sippy, former cricketer as well, Rakesh Rao, deputy editor of The Hindu, joining me right now. To begin with, let me actually ask this question to Rakesh Rao. Mr. Rao, what are the options in front of us and which looks most likely? Is it possible that England does agree for a rescheduling?
See, first of all, this has been cancelled. Let's not, overlook the word cancel. It's not postponed. Let's get that straight. ICC says this match has been cancelled for now. Now, what it means is that you can actually debate it all day long, saying whether it will be rescheduled or not. Yes, India has it offered to do so. If India has done it, ECB hasn't responded. So let's look at the facts right as they are at this point in time. We can't look too far ahead. Yes, the talk has been that yes, only one window which is foreseeable at this point in time is that when India travels to England for the ODIs and T20s, you might as well just squeeze in there. But my point is, why should you complete a test series? Just leave it as a match. Just treat it as a 4-match series and be done with it. I mean, why are we stretching it to next year? I mean, it really beats me. What happens if it just gets cancelled? That's it. My point is that if you want to reschedule it, yes, go ahead and do it. But with both the countries agreeing to it, if England is quiet on this, I know that it is, very, very, very early days at the moment to actually decide on it. Yes, you can, allow it to, simmer a bit. And then you say, okay, IPL is there just a few days from now. We can't have it immediately. So the question of holding it, after a day or two, it just doesn't arise. Number two, you couldn't have gone ahead with the match as of today or tomorrow. That means what would have happened if the cases had emerged 2 days into the match? Then what would have happened? I mean, Indians wouldn't have continued with 6 people on the field. So I think it is a wise call to take. And let's just wait and watch for now.
Okay, but if that be the case, and it's a very legitimate point that you're making about, 1 or 2 days would not have made a difference. But for some reason, that was the logic that was followed when India was playing Sri Lanka. And we kept pushing the match, the starting of the match by 1 day, another day, another day. And we did it over a period of 5 days. For some reason, when the first case came up, even this time, we were already playing the test match. And we just said, okay, this flow test has been done for these cricketers. They've all turned up negative. And so we're going to continue as usual up until more cases came in. So I know there is never a right answer to how much of precautions you can take and at what point do you draw the line. But I think for that very reason, Mr. Indranil Basu, there are conspiracy theorists who are speaking up and saying, did you just choose IPL over this test match?
It's not exactly like that. BCCI was ready to play initially, but then the players showed their concern, surrounding the whatever tension was around. And they were not in a mood to give away the test match. And there was no question because they have played really hard. We've seen what they've done in London, both at Lord's and at Oval. They really won those 2 great test matches. And we have to win this test match. And Virat Kohli is itching to become the first Indian captain to win a test series in Australia and England. And you can't take it away from him. And England, for some strange reasons, they are under that hallucination they can level the series. Well, they have done well in the Leeds test match. We know that. But India are a far better team today. And yes, IPL is there. You have to take precautions. It's not IPL alone. Suppose you play a test match and some untoward incident happen. One player is tested positive, let's say. The entire team has to go for an isolation. Right, and that happens, it'll definitely going to affect IPL, which is being cancelled once before. So we can't afford to have 2 cancellation in same year. Second, and it will directly impact the World T20. And last year we couldn't have the World T20 in Australia. This year we are having it. India is supposed to host the event. It's gone to UAE. Only concern here is the players and how they are feeling inside. This feeling is quite strange. Every time you go there, you have to quarantine and that process, it's getting so tedious, and they're really holding it together. Kudos to them, really. We've seen the England all-rounder Ben Stokes almost, he admitted to it that I am having psychological problem. I can't play anymore like this. It's like being jailed and you're going into something, you play and you come back. Ground hotel affair. This is this is really, really tough on the players. You have to understand that.
But Mr.
And yes,
Basu, I completely understand. I think I would be the first one to speak about, these challenges of a bio bubble, of isolation, of a constant fear of COVID just being around the corner, and yet having to continue play under these conditions. But that doesn't change significantly if we are to understand already that this time a team will be flying right out in a couple of days into another isolation, into another bio bubble, and into another series. So that being said, the situation doesn't drastically change for them, and the fear continues to travel with them. Mr. Basu.
Yeah, of course, it's really going to be challenging, and BCCI somehow managed to convince cricket ECB that you're going to be around. We are going to play that test match, because they were very sure that India will have to forfeit the test match, and BCCI was not in a position to do that. And the negotiation happened, back channel talks and all that, but somehow they managed to keep ECB on hold. We can't say right now we have won the England series. We are ahead in the England series, and when it's going to happen, when they are going to find a window, we have absolutely no idea. First, the players' security, their health is very important. And one good thing, and every panelist here would agree with me, in last 1 year, we have gone through some horrible times, and it's only the sports people who have survived very well, because of their, they're sort of, they're on the field, they're playing, their habits, the entire thing is so different from the millions. We have struggled. The immunity I was missing. I was searching for that word, immunity. That is so powerful. The immune system is so good, and so you have to trust that and make sure cricket continues. But cricket is continuing under really, really tough times. We are seeing what we are seeing on TV, sitting back, and we don't know what goes through a player's mind when they're going through that sort of discipline, staying in the room, straight away go to the field, come back, perform. It's not easy at all. You also have an option to drop out, but no one actually wants to drop out.
Yeah, nobody would want to take a risk, but that option exists, and many have opted even in Olympics, and earlier also mentioned in various sports, but it's a very big decision to take. But let's talk about, the fact that we are here. Not to say that this hasn't happened in the past. The England tour of South Africa, the India versus Sri Lanka series that I said earlier, IPL, of course, the Pakistan Super League. There have been many instances where tournaments have been hit, this being the latest one. But Alan Sippy, obviously there's a lot of debate about how did it happen, and if at all that breach of the bio bubble, as it is being called, for Ravi Shastri's book event had anything to do with it. Surely something that the English aren't very happy about.
Well, Tanvi, people always clutch at straws. I can tell you one thing. When India reached England, they were in a hardcore bubble. Nobody was allowed to mingle. Nobody was allowed to go anywhere here and there. So the Indian team were actually locked up in the hotel room. What was shocking in Durham, for example, in the hotel room in Durham, the Indian team was in a complete bubble. So they were supposed to be in this bubble, but in the Durham hotel, at the start of the tour, there was a wedding in that hotel. In that hotel, there was a wedding where people were, outsiders, guests were coming and were actually going in the same elevator as the Indian team. So how is it, you can't have two different rules. You want this Indian team to be in a bubble. You want them to live in the kind of a prison. But at the same time, you have a wedding in the same hotel that people are going in and out of the hotel. So it's coming back to the book. It doesn't make sense when people in elevators and hotels are mingling with one another, getting the same elevator. So what is this book about? This book is nothing. It was just a party. It happened to be in a time when in England, and England had rightly so, the UK, United Kingdom, had lifted the main bubble and given Freedom Day to the rest of the country and allowed the spectators to watch. So when you're watching the match, imagine, I remember I was sitting in Leeds, actually right behind the dugout. So if I'm allowed to sit right behind the dugout, what is a party, what is a book launch going to do? I was sitting right behind, and there were lots of people almost in touching distance with the cricketers. Why were we allowed to sit so close to the cricketers? Why were they allowed to not mingle, but why were the cricketers allowed to actually pass through these people? So it's COVID and this sickness does not come just with a party. It can come with one human being passing it on to another.
No, Alan, like I said, like I said earlier also that you can always, the line and where you need to draw the line can be debated. At what point do you realize that this is the level of precautions we need to take? But this, for right now, it's an existing protocol. It's a process that has been put into place across the world for all teams, and not just the teams, the support staff, the broadcast teams. Everybody is living through this bio bubble. There's a process that has to be followed until we decide we don't want to follow this rule.
But these are, Tanvi, let me tell you, the Indian team were following this process all the way. They never broke any rules. In fact, every permission was taken. It was since it was lifted after the Lord's Test. In the Lord's Test, if you look at the Lord's Test, there was no mingling. There was nobody meeting one another. It is after the Lord's Test that they had gone to Leeds, and when they realized that people are allowed to mingle with one another, this event happened in the book launch. So I don't think it's anything to do with the book launch. I don't think it's anything. Yes, there's an article that has come out in the Daily Mail in UK by Mr. Lawrence Booth has highlighted this point. Naturally, he has to highlight because he has to clutch his stone. But I believe in life that you never throw stones from glass houses. And for me, according to me, the ECB and the BCCI are very professional. In fact, Tom Harrison of the ECB, the CEO of the BCC, is a wonderful gentleman. I've had interactions with him. He's an outstanding gentleman. He knows the Indian cricket team. He knows the Indian board very well. So according to me, the BCCI are working very well with the ECB. It's a lot of harmony between the two countries. So it's nothing, there's no fire here. We should just relax and think that, this is a precedent. I would just want to add one more point, Tanvi. This is a precedent going forward, because tomorrow when we tour some other country, now you learn it's a learning curve that next time, if you want to have a bubble, have it really hardcore and don't let spectators in. But if you don't let spectators in, how do you have the game and to flourish? That's the problem.
But Alan Sippy here, thank you, Mr. Kurasia, for joining us. Alan Sippy here is literally suggesting that we relook at all the rules that exist of allowing people and spectators in the stadium, but not allowing the players and the coach to step out during the tournament. Do you agree that we can actually stretch the argument to this point? At the end of the day, the simple controversy is, in the middle of a series, was there a need to hold a book event and breach the bio bubble?
I think this is to me, Tanvi?
Yes.
I think there should be no reason to break a bio bubble. For whatever reasons it is being broken, it is something which should not be appreciated. Come what may, you are representing India and you need to follow certain norms. And as far as following the rules and setting the standards and setting the precedents is concerned, everybody has to be up his toes and everybody has to follow that. And I come back to your first point also, the first statement that you made, that ECB forfeited the match. Well, in a given situation, ECB was very happy forfeiting the match, and that's why the news floated. But then eventually it got cancelled and it is being rescheduled. Now, why they did that? Because England in this series are down and out. And there was every chance that when they are morally down, they would have lost the series 5. But they lost the 5th test also in the series. So this gives them a chance to come back. And they wanted to buy time, they got time, and eventually it was both parties settling down. India wanted to play, but then India couldn't play because actually we had players where their safety and security was concerned, and so we didn't play. But then ECB would be very happy to buy time, and India, well, they didn't want to give time, but they had no choice except to give time.
No, but if India forfeits this match, then we equalize. So it actually does go in England's favor any which ways. Wouldn't that be true, Mr. Rao? And that's where, I don't know, but I'm sensing ECB's silence also comes from there. In England, there's quite a bit of controversy about how this has happened and how we've reached here and what ECB should do next.
See, where is the question of India forfeiting the match?
That's
you
what
forfeit
ECB
a match
said.
for a reason.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Very fact that they had to retract the statement, that makes you think that they just jumped the gun. They used the wrong word. Coming from an English-speaking country, they should have thought and then acted. Here, they acted and then thought about it. So here they retracted it. And so let's just hold it there, that the question of forfeiture, it just doesn't exist. So just keep that out of the frame. Secondly, it is so far the impression that we are getting is it is India which is assuring them that the series will continue at a later date. And ECB so far hasn't made a commitment. Yes, we are trying to do any A or B or either way. But it is India which is assuring them, that is all fine. But my question is, why float this whole idea of forfeiture? That doesn't exist in my book at all. That's number one. Number two, I want you to just step back and just, imagine a situation where it was, like England, which was the visiting team. They came to India. They were under, they were actually in a kind of a secure zone. And then one by one, their members start getting affected by COVID. And you have one fan who keeps jumping into the playing arena by choice. And that is considered just a breach of security. And everybody is, laughing about it. It's a serious breach of security. It is people putting at risk. And then you say that these Indians were in a secure bubble. Now, how do you allow a fan to just jump in and jump out at will? Not once, not twice, but 3 times. That's what I'm trying to say. The question, all questions would have been raised had India been the host. Then you would have said, look, they breached the bubble and, they didn't give us the kind of security that we were assured and so on and so forth. Now, the same people are crying. I mean, they're actually singing a different tune. That is because it suits them. So that's what I'm saying. Most of these British, cricket writers and former cricketers, they all will take one stand or the other and they'll all back their team saying that, look, we could have made it 2-2, right? But we didn't get the opportunity. So we will be ready with Jofra Archer, with, somebody like Stokes. They all will be back. We will take on India if the match is rescheduled. So our team stands strengthened. They'll have all these ideas. Right. Just wait and watch. But what I'm trying to say is, looking at the situation as we speak, there's so much to be said that this match has been cancelled. The series is over at the moment. BCCI is assured, but they haven't heard from the ECB. That's where the thing stands.
So, Mr. Rao, to the point that you made, and I completely agree with you about that fan who keeps running onto the field, and every time it's just laughed off. Had it been the English team in any other part of the world, in fact, specifically in India, the reaction would have been completely different, and the outrage would have been, at least 10 times the same level. For example, Kevin Peterson says, and he's actually reminding them, England left the tour of South Africa for COVID scares. So he's actually reminding them and saying, so don't go around pointing fingers now that this has happened. But he also, the first tweet that he actually put out, as he builds the whole case about how it's all just business and nothing more, and any other argument doesn't hold true, cricket is just business now. He says, wow, wow, wow. Does it mean with 9 days till CSK versus Mumbai Indian in Dubai, no player from each team that's in UK will be available if they now have 10 days of quarantining in UK? Or whether they quarantine in UK or travel in a bubble and then isolate themselves in Middle East, all of that is different. But he's trying to make a larger point, and it comes down to decisions about business, Mr. Rao.
It is. It is a purely, you can't ignore the fact that IPL is nothing but commercial. It is an in-house tournament held in camera. There are no spectators allowed. They have, commitments made to the stakeholders. They need to go on with it. Last time it was postponed because they didn't have a choice. That is why it was never cancelled. It was just, it was put off. And then they found another window where all the countries agreed. So, it is a domestic tournament. Let's not get this thing that IPL is an international tournament. It is a domestic tournament comprising or, including players from all playing countries, most of them at least, yes. But every cricket playing country wants to please BCCI. That's an open secret. They don't have to even say it. We know it. So there is a difference. So when it comes to IPL, the stakes are different. That is why just because IPL is 9 days from now, things are being seen different. Like you gave the example of Sri Lanka. Had there been no commitment, even this match would have been pushed by a day or by a week. Since we have a commitment, the teams have already reached, UAE. Players have reached from different countries. They are already in practice. So there is no question of going back. You had to cancel it. And that was, in my view, a very wise call.
Do you agree, Amay, that this was a wise call? It is a tight schedule, so you will have to at some point pick and choose because IPL starts and ends, and then there is the T20 World Cup.
Yeah. Even this statement is coming from my friend Rakesh Rawji, and he's a very old friend. And apart from that, I fully agree to the wisdom of this thought that yes, this is a very wise statement, and this is a very wise call. So I fully agree to this.
Okay, Alan Sippy, let me come back to you. You wanted to make a point earlier. Go ahead, please.
Which one? I've lost track. Tanvi, can you bring me back to the whole thing? Which point would you like me to talk about?
I think that was the reference, the discussion that we were having about English, not having the right to point fingers at us when they have breached the same so many times.
Exactly. I get it. Because Mr. Rao said it. You cannot throw stones. I repeat myself. You cannot throw stones from glass houses. In fact, I think we need to commend this Indian team rather than actually find faults with them. Because you see, Tanvi, they've been on the road for such a long time. Now they were playing in England for 3.5 months in a kind of a bubble, bio bubble. And these guys, it's so difficult. You try to see in your own house how difficult it is when we were in a lockdown. You could not go to the market, you could not do things. These guys, these cricketers with their families, thankfully so, they were allowed to take their families. Imagine if people like Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma and the other cricketers were not allowed to take their families, how would they have survived in this bubble? It's easy for people to say, do not breach the bubble. What are we talking about? Are we talking nonsense here? Do not breach the bubble. It is so difficult to be in a bubble, to actually follow the system and follow the rules. Yes, these guys did it so well. It is only after the Lord's Test match, they were following all the rules. It's when England actually lifted the bubble and allowed these cricketers to actually go out. So that in Leeds, these cricketers were going out to restaurants. They were going out to different places to eat. They were going because England had lifted it. They had said you can go out and have a little bit more freedom. So coming back to this, India has behaved impeccably. We should actually commend these guys rather than chastise them. And ECB, let me tell you this about ECB. I know firsthand that ECB is actually, not upset with India. The stories that you're hearing that, they're upset and they're angry, not at all. In fact, ECB, I can repeat myself, Tom Harrison and the BCCI board, all of them, Mr. Shukla working very hard on this, and Mr. Shah, everybody is in tandem. They know what's happening. And lastly, let me point, yes, the IPL, because of the IPL, there's only 9 days away. Absolutely, because you got the big, huge franchises there. They must be worried too, because tomorrow if somebody gets into test positive, their cricketers will be in trouble. So it's not only because of that. That had to be a consideration which the Indian board and the ECB has worked in tandem and said, we'll postpone this, or it's not cancel the match, we'll postpone this. So this is what they're trying to do. And hopefully next year, they will reward them with maybe a game or two.
So why, Mr. Sippy, is it not being said that this has been postponed? Why have the two sides chosen to say it's cancelled?
Because right now, see, if you say it's postponed, it's indefinitely. That means you don't know what's going to happen. Right? With cancelled, they're thinking that in future, coming back to a point somebody had raised earlier, that if you say, let's make the series four test matches and that's it, and India is 1-2-1. It doesn't work that way because this is a test match. It goes into the history of the game. So people don't want to say that England lost. I understand that bit. This is a simpler way, an easier way to keep both sides happy and both sides not upset. Rather than England tried to say forfeit the game, India said no way, and rightly so. Why would they forfeit the game? The series. So India said, and England and India decided that we will be in tandem and make sure that this can be done at a later date, if it's a possibility. But I think it's very difficult to actually have a match at a later date. But to keep the peace now, they have decided to call the series off.
You said exactly what I was going to actually speak about. The cricketing schedules for our players is so packed, Mr. Indranil Basu, so packed. And so many series that already couldn't take place are now being fit into wherever there is space. How are we going to find space for this one match? Or will it be a continuation of this series? And us going back and playing that one test match? What will happen then? How do we figure this out? Will it have to be a fresh series? Do we finish and forget this one right here?
No, I mean, no one was willing to budge. And that's why they said we are postponing this one test match, which is the Old Trafford test match. But wondering, where is the window? I mean, for one test match, Indian team will travel all the way to Heathrow, from there to Manchester. This is little surprising. How will they do it? And this was a test match, which was a contentious issue before the England series began. BCCI, of course, wanted the test match to happen a little earlier. England were not willing to budge, and they said, we have this schedule, you have to play, because it's like really touch and go, right? You just go, finish your game, finish your test match, you rush back to UAE to play IPL. Right after that, you have, so it's been very taxing. So BCCI wanted, and right after the World Test Championship, there was a huge gap. They wanted to prepone the series, which England were not willing to budge, and now they wanted to, they wanted BCCI to forfeit the test match. BCCI was not willing to do that, and then they have just send it to it's in oblivion. I mean, when we don't know when it's going to happen. Where is the window? I mean, we have South Africa after the World Cup. We have so many home series. Next year we have the World Cup also. For one test match, traveling all the way to England, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's really dicey right now. I have no idea how they're going to do it.
Yes, that's the big point, Mr. Indranil Basu. Where is the window? All fans are wondering that. And what do we then consider this series? Series 1, series drawn? Is it 2-1? Is it 2-2? Will it be this year? Will it be next year? At what point? What do you think?
No, one more thing. It's get people. Some people might blame IPL is very important for BCCI. IPL is lifeline for Indian cricket. We lot of our cricketers, domestic cricketers. Last year, Ranji Trophy didn't happen, but still they are going to get money, and thanks to IPL. So IPL is our lifeline. Let's not let's not bash IPL, because it's whatever cricket Indian cricket is today. We can send one team to England, one team to Sri Lanka, third team to Zimbabwe. It's all because of the IPL. For one slot, we have five contenders.
No, I'm not getting into whether the merits of the IPL exist or not, Mr. Basu. Obviously, IPL has done a great lot for the cricketing world and for the talent that we have. But COVID times are unprecedented times. Just like in every other segment of our life, every other industry, every other profession, even cricketing world is having to deal with challenges, and you will have to pick and choose which way you go. Now, this seems to also be a choice, not just about the health of the players, which is important, but also to say we need these 15 players for the first 2 or 3 matches. It's really about the first 2 or 3 matches and whether this squad makes it for those matches. Nobody is saying that the entire IPL tournament had to be pushed by another 15 days for this. That's the choice we've made. We've decided to let go of finishing this test series with possibly Virat Kohli coming off with another record and a historic win because of those 2 or 3 T20 matches in IPL, and perhaps Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma having to play there. That's what it is.
Yeah, but this is how it is. You can't complain. Last year, for instance, there was a choice whether to have World T20 in Australia or IPL. And Australia was, under a lot of stress because of COVID-19. And what happened in the end? IPL happened. I mean, no international cricket was happening, but IPL happened. And in month of April, when IPL got postponed last year, did anyone imagine IPL could happen in September? But it did happen. IPL is very important. That's what I call it, the lifeline. So everything else can wait. If you see one valuation of an IPL game and compare it to one test match valuation, and IPL matches are really super powerful in terms of money.
Okay, last comment from Alan Sippy on this, Alan, because for fans of cricket, it's going to be very difficult to really understand the decision and choose between various formats and what they would have got watching this match versus what happens next. And I'm not saying it's necessarily that's the only reason. There are many factors at play. But this decision has been taken. So if we've taken this decision, what happens to this test series? What should we consider it as? Because nobody sees a window for the last round.
Tanvi, I wouldn't have, I don't have a magic board that I can tell you what will happen in the future. But I think this is a very decent decision. I use the word decent because I think they had no option. They could not risk anything. any people getting getting positive again. Both ECB and India realize this thing, because it's not just we talk about being in a bio bubble. Imagine, Tanvi, I just give you a cricket analogy. Imagine somebody hits a six and the ball goes into the stands. Somebody throws the ball back. Now that ball is contaminated with whatever, so you can get COVID with that. So it's basically, in short, what I'm trying to say. This decision had no choice. Both the BCC, I think they work very well with ECB, because India has a very strong relationship with ECB. And I think this is the right decision. Yes, it's upsetting for the fans, because the fans feel that, they wanted to see something. But as far as India is concerned, they should realize one thing, that India had morally defeated England in England. So this is a moral victory. It's maybe not a test series win because it's incomplete. But I think it's an outstanding way that India has performed in Australia once before and now in England. So it's showing that this Indian team, even though we are in the COVID, and even though they are living in a bio bubble, are experiencing and fighting so hard together as a strong unit to actually come out in difficult situations like the COVID.
Well, difficult situations is agreed. Difficult conditions, restrictions, agreed. But the conditions and restrictions have actually been put into place for the safety of the players and the support staff, the entire contingent. And I really do wish that everybody would simply just follow it day in, day out, as long as you are in it. If there is a problem, if it's getting too much, if you need a break, you need to raise it then with your management, as it is in any other profession of life. To say that they've been in bio bubble for months together, and so a breach is all right, is not okay. That being said, no point in debating about why that book event took place, who all were present there, were the ECB and BCCI in the know or not, or even if that is the reason that COVID got into the Indian contingent, we don't know, we will never know. A decision has now been taken to cancel the 5th test match. A lot of it may be connected to the fact that had it been pushed, that would have put a big question mark on the initial few games of the IPL. Remember that the players will have to at some point be in isolation, get tested again to ensure that there is no COVID anymore in this entire contingent, fly to the Middle East, be in isolation there as per the rules of that country before they get into the bio bubble, and then start training for the IPL that starts next month. Not much time. Let's see where ECB and BCCI find the window to play this final test match. Thank you for joining us.